Hi, Danielle. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Sherry, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here today. I'm really excited to start this conversation because I don't know if you know this, but we have a couple things in common. And one of it is the fact that we both got hit by a car and that we had to overcome a lot of what was told to us by doctors to really almost embrace our life in a brand new way. And so before we get into that, I want to hear your story and maybe you could share with the listeners. You've overcome a traumatic brain injury. And so could you share a little bit of what happened?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. To take you guys back, it was an accident that happened about 10 years ago. So I was in a car, and a guy was driving drunk. He passed out and he came across and he hit me head on. And I was really blessed that I was able to walk away from the accident. In fact, I thought I was okay. I mean, the airbags had gone off. I had burns on my body from that, but that was it. And I told the paramedics when they arrived, I said, I feel kind of out of it. And they told me, like, oh, it's just shock. And I thought, well, I've never been in an accident before. I guess this is what shock feels like. I didn't know. And when my parents came and they picked me up from the scene, they said, something's off with you. And I said, I know, I don't feel right. So they took me to a clinic and same diagnosis. It's just shock. It'll wear off. And in the weeks that followed, my head felt like it was going to explode. I mean, it felt like somebody had a vice grip on me. There was just pounding and I couldn't concentrate. I was not able to handle light, like just natural light. Felt like somebody was shining a flashlight in my eye. It was that intense to the point where like I got blackout fabric that I put over the windows and noise. It was the same thing. Like I was hearing everything. It was like all of a sudden my brain couldn't like focus on what somebody was saying because I was hearing the air conditioner and I was hearing like everything at the same level. And eventually I got into my primary care doctor and he said, you need to go to a neurologist. I think you've had a brain injury. So fast forward, this whole thing unwinds. I finally get the diagnosis of a mild traumatic brain injury, which I thought, what an oxymoron, because there is nothing mild about this. And they told me like it should clear in about a month. So I tried to go back to work. And at the time, I was doing Teach for America. So I was teaching sixth grade in a classroom out in Denver, Colorado, and I couldn't handle it. I mean, imagine the lights, the fluorescent lights, and like the noise of the kids. And I just like 2 seconds in the classroom, and I went, "This isn't going to work." So went on a medical leave. There were no answers. Like basically, I was being told by the medical community, like, "We'll just sit tight, like it'll pass." And I'm not one to just sit tight. I've been an athlete my whole life, and you push through things, right? And you're always seeking and looking and trying to get back in the game. And so I was trying things like hyperbaric oxygen treatment. I was doing neurobiofeedback, all this stuff that at the time was kind of the cutting edge for brain injury. This is back 2012. There's a lot more light that has been kind of shown on this area, and more there now. But back then, that's what we had, and it wasn't enough. Like after my medical leave, couldn't go back, and ultimately lost my position. Which, at the age of 23, you don't really have a backup plan if you don't have an income. And so I had to move back in with my parents. And it was intense because I feel like I lost my identity.
Mm.
Here I was, somebody that had worked out every day since I was young, competed in sports, top performer like you when you shared about grades. I'm like, oh yeah, I was top of my class, top everything. Like that's just like how I was in life. All of a sudden, none of that mattered anymore. And I couldn't do. And it was very difficult. I couldn't even work out because if my heart rate got
Right.
like up at all, it triggered a massive migraine. And yeah, that's where I found myself. And it was a really dark time, really, really dark time.
I'm so sorry. And I can really feel your pain as you're sharing this. I see your body language shifting. I see even your face changing and I see you reliving that trauma because it's not just the traumatic brain injury, it's the trauma to every single
Oh,
aspect of your
yeah.
life. And I feel that coming off of you. And I'm so incredibly sorry that you went through this. And I feel that in life we're handed certain experiences because once we understand what we're supposed to do with them, then we're supposed to share that insight with the world and truly impact so many people. And just from our little conversation that we had offline, it's so clear that that's what you're doing. And you're just a beautiful, beautiful light. And I'm so excited to continue to talk to you today. And Danielle, I think the question that was coming up for me is, did you hit your head during the accident, right? So you kind of felt okay when everything happened, and there definitely is a sense of shock because your
For
whole
sure.
entire system is like, okay, what just happened? And you're trying to process something that happened so quickly. But did you hit your head? Was there any physical impact that actually happened in the head, or did these symptoms start sort of appearing and emerging a little bit later?
Yeah, I had like I looked like this. So that was the crazy part. Like I'd look in the mirror and I'm like, snap out of it, Danielle. Come on, Danielle. Because I looked fine. And what they told me was that my skull, like, well, my brain hit my skull. And
Mhm.
so it was like this internal damage and it tore the myelin sheath. And when they did the neurobiofeedback, it was pretty interesting because she could see like my neurons firing. And she said, these ones should be firing at this speed and they're down here like this because the message isn't able to get through as efficiently because of these tears. And so what that showed up for me is like super slow processing speed. Like I couldn't get the words out I wanted to. I couldn't follow conversation. I felt like dull. I felt like I was like thinking through mud. And but yeah, one of the most frustrating things with everybody would say to me, well, you look okay. Well, you look
Right.
good. I'm like, I wish I didn't because I don't feel good. And you're not treating me any differently, right? You see somebody on crutches, like you open the door for them. But me, like my head's wanting to explode and somebody's got like their phone on speakerphone and they're talking. And I'm like, can you please like turn it off? And they're like, what is wrong with you? But yeah, so brain injury, I honestly think a lot of people walk around with head trauma injuries that they're unaware
Yes.
because they manifest differently. It can cause depression because of things that get rattled up there. It can cause you not to be able to concentrate. Like I see a lot of kids in sports in high school that like I've now talked to a lot of parents that they're like, oh my gosh, this is what happened. Or they're now adults and they're going, holy cow, they're connecting the dots backwards, going, wow, I had a car accident. I had a brain bleed. They never told me that it could then manifest in me feeling the things that I'm feeling. It's wild. It's kind of like the brain was the last frontier, I think, for scientists to kind of learn more about, and doctors are still trying to catch up to figure out what do you do with injuries to the brain.
Yeah, it actually is very recent. My background is in athletic therapy, and I'll tell you that when I first started, this was maybe, I'm going to say 15 years ago or something along those lines, we were just learning to diagnose concussions. And, we had a very simple assessment around them, but we didn't really understand the degree in which that could actually impact a person or impact an athlete, not only momentarily, but also to be more susceptible to have a second concussion and how much easier it is to continue to damage the brain once you've already done it the first time. And I was hit by a car when I was 16 years old, and I remember I blacked out. Like when I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. There was
Mm,
no, this was back in 1996. I mean, that's a while back. There was no diagnosis of a concussion. Nobody
right.
spoke about it, even though I had hit my head, even though I had abrasions on my face. There was no diagnosis of a concussion. I remember coming back to school, super foggy brain, had a hard time continuing the rest of my year. But the only thing that we were focusing on at that point was the actual, like you were saying, what was physically wrong. And what was physically wrong was this limp I was developing, and then later on back pain and issues around my back. So I also, like you, felt super robbed of my identity, right? Like overnight, within one instant, it's who am I? I'm this athlete, and now I no longer can show up that way. So then who am I, right?
Exactly. hmm And it's like, to me, I'm so grateful it happened. Now, looking back, like if you'd have said this to me, like the first year of my accident recovery, like, Danielle, this happened for you. This is actually, you're going to love it.
No.
I'd have kicked you.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Stop
no,
seeing that.
exactly. Like, no, it didn't. I would not have wished this. But now I look back and I go, wow, because all of that fell away, I actually got in touch with my true self and realizing that, like, I mean, I don't know how to explain it other than it's like you look at the sky and the sky is always there. But
Hmm.
some days it's raining, and some days, I live in Florida, we get hurricanes and it's intense, but the sky is always in the backdrop. This like unconditional love, no preference, no judgment, just allows things to be there. And what I realized was I had been so identified like with the weather. Like I thought, oh, I'm the sunshine. If this makes sense to people, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like I was so identified with these things that were in the material world, not realizing that no, the truth of who I am is is the thing that's there before, during, and after all of
Mhm.
these experiences, all of these thoughts. And I started to get in touch with that more. And it happened through meditation. My mom actually, she gave me what's called a yoga nidra. It's a guided meditation.
Mhm.
And she said, you have to do it in a dark room and you got to lie down. And I was like, well, that I can do. so so we did that. And the first time she ever kind of guided me in one, I fell asleep and I stayed asleep for the whole night, which for me, my brain was always so alert. I'd wake up like every 2 hours. It was the first time I slept deeply. And I said to her, I said, can you record that? Because I want to do that throughout the day. So I would do it and it would stop like a migraine before it got full blown. Like it was just it's this incredible thing. And I didn't realize that one of the benefits of meditating is you're constantly like getting out of the thoughts and you're accessing this deeper part to you. And all of a sudden my depression started to just lift, my anxiety like washed away. It was this sense of peace and this like knowing that, hey, it's all going to be okay. That started to come over me. My symptoms were all 100% still there, but the emotional piece, it was almost like, wow, it was resolving itself.
Mm. Wow. So before you got to that place where you found meditation, what was being told to you? What were doctors telling you? Like, what was your prognosis going forward? I know
Oh,
you've
yeah.
been getting answers for a while. What was that
Yeah.
like?
Doctors never gave me answers. So I was told 1 month. Then I was told it'll clear in 3 months. Then when it didn't, they said 6 months. And then at my 1 year appointment, this is my neurologist. He literally said to me, and I'll never forget the words. He said, Danielle, with your type of injury, your body's done the healing it's going to do. And
Mm.
he said, this is your new normal, and you need to shape your life around your symptoms, and you need to move on. And I remember thinking, like, something inside of me was like, you're fired. Like, there's no
Oh, that's not
way. Like,
happening.
yeah, I'm 24 and you want me to live like this. I remember thinking, like, this isn't a life. Like, I will not stay on this earth if this is how it's going to be.
Mhm.
And I remember asking him, I had this book in my bag at the time. It was called The Brain That Changes Itself by, I think the author is Norman Doidge. And it was all about neuroscience and neuroplasticity and like these amazing cases of how, these researchers had done different things to get like, I mean, stroke patients that had lost like, half their brain back walking again. And I said to him, I said, how can you say that there's no hope when I'm reading about neuroplasticity? And he said, it's a theory, it's not proven. And I was like, we're done. We're so done. But he fortunately had referred me out to a cognitive therapist because he said, you need to work your life around your symptoms. She'll help you figure out how you can live with all these, disabilities, basically. And she was amazing. And she had a support group. And that support group was so helpful to just be around other people that they didn't feel bad for me, like family and friends. It was almost like they pitied me and that didn't feel good.
Mm.
And they saw me like, oh, she's a victim of this, like how bad for her. I got around these other brain injury people and we're just laughing about like the stupid stuff that we do sometimes because like we forget, oh yeah, we left the stove on, could have burned the house down. Like whoops, like this just happens. And it was really really helpful, like cathartic, to be able to like have those conversations with those people and be in that space. But the emotional and mental side of injury, that was really where I could work first, because when that doctor said that to me, I just thought, well, God, is there no hope? And well, if I can't control like my physical body, I got to figure out how to control the inside, like my emotional state, my mental state, because it was a wreck. It was a big wreck.
Yeah, well, I can definitely relate. And it's interesting. We accept this when it comes to sports, when it comes to athletes, right? And it's been known for a very long time. There's this athletic mindset that I actually speak a lot about in the podcast, but this athletic mindset of I will do, I will not give up, I will push through, I will defeat, I will win, right? And so we know that in sports, this is okay. We know Muhammad Ali, I am the best, and he did everything to be the best. And it's all about the strength of the mind. And so when it comes to injury, it's very interesting. And again, your story completely parallels my story of, Sherry, you're just going to be destined to like walking on the treadmill and there's no more sports for you. This is your new normal and just get used to it. And here's pain medication that you'll have to take for the rest of your life. Right. And it's interesting because we don't take that mindset that we know works very well for athletes. and apply that then to overcome injury or overcome disease, because ultimately the mind just sends out a thought. The thought is a program, and then the body just programs it. The body just follows whatever that those thoughts are. And so why do you think that is, Danielle? Why do you think we almost as a society accept what doctors say to be the truth, and we don't always look elsewhere, especially if we didn't have that athletic background?
Yeah, we give our power away. And I think it's so interesting because doctors have this like authority, we're like, oh, well, they know. And I grew up, my grandfather was a doctor. So, my whole life we call him. He referred us to the best of the best. It was a referral of his that told me it's my new normal. And I just thought he was the first to say there's stuff that we don't know as doctors. Like they never taught me nutrition. I have people come in and ask me about this supplement, that supplement. I can't give them an answer. And I have only so much time in the day. I can't research it for everybody. But I think as society, we're like programmed to kind of put them on a pedestal, and I'm not to say that they don't have the right answers. They do.
100%.
There's certainly a place for them. You get injured in sports, like, I want to go to the doctor. Like, let's get this thing put back together. But like there's a limitation. And I think we just accept it. And at least for myself, what I noticed was a victim mentality. And it was like, well, this diagnosis is beyond me. This authority figure has told me it's mine. And so many people then identify with it. Like, can you imagine if I had said, oh yeah, this is the rest of my life? Where would I be? And something within me said no, but so many people just take it as it's real. Well, this is it. And then, as you said, your thoughts then start to continue to create the actions you take and what you attract in. And there's something called the reticular activator in your brain where it like literally picks up, like I just bought a Jeep. I'm seeing Jeeps everywhere now because my brain has now been programmed that Jeeps are important. We're going to let that information into her conscious mind because there's so much we're inundated with that our brain siphons it off and it tells us what we should pay attention to. The moment you accept your diagnosis as that's it. This is my reality. This is how it's going to be. You're literally telling the reticular activator to stop looking for answers. But I was so committed. I was like, it was that athlete mentality. I'm going to get better. I'm going to find a way. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know it's going to come, that I stayed open. So anytime something was suggested, it was like, yeah, I'll try it. Yeah, I'll try it. Yeah, I'll try it. Because why not? Like I also, my degree is in biology. And I know that the body is meant to be in homeostasis. Like it wants to repair. So maybe there's just something that the physical body needs to get back to, that space. And so that's kind of how I look at it. And I hope that I can empower other people to realize like, you got to take your power back.
Yeah.
If you're a victim to a circumstance, you've put the power out there and now you're off center. But the moment you say, okay, there's the external world. It's happened. Accident happened. We both got hit by cars. Like that happened. But your internal response to it is going to create your reality. And you get to pick the internal response. And this is the nuance that everyone screws up their life with because they think, oh, this is happening to me. Oh, I feel so awful. And so you're making an awful life. But if you say, what's this challenge making possible? What door is this opening? Where am I supposed to be going? What am I supposed to be learning? I recently wrote an ebook on this topic because I thought everyone's faced with challenges, right? For you and me, it was these accidents with these cars, but it's made me realize, whoa, like every challenge in front of us, every obstacle is actually an opportunity to go within and pull something different out of yourself. Like that's what it's designed for. Like life is just, it's therapy. Like life is constantly trying to teach you to become more, but we resist it. We don't realize we ask the wrong questions or, we think, oh, we're a victim to the external world. You're not. Like it is literally trying to unfold to empower you. But so many people like miss that memo. They miss that little nuance of their internal choice.
Oh, so good. Wow. So, so good. And, I think what needs to happen there, I mean, if anyone is listening, I just want to say also that I completely sympathize with that feeling of injury, of that feeling of not being able to do anything for yourself. Because when I had my second back surgery, Danielle, I was living in my mom's house. Like I had a 2-year-old at the time who was potty training. I had a 3-year-old and I couldn't take care of my kids. I couldn't cook. So I completely sympathize and understand what it feels like to not be able to physically do something for yourself. But what I do want to say is what I did have are a few things that pulled me out of that. And number one, It was not accepting that current state as who I was. That was not my identity. And in fact, I didn't want to be the girl who is, suffering from a bad back, right? I just wanted to have an injury, but I didn't want to be the injury. I didn't want that to be who I was. So that was the first thing, is not accepting my state and really not accepting it to be who I am. And then the other part was this sense of knowing, like I knew that like there's a way out of this. I don't have to stay like this. There is a way out of this. And I just need to understand what that is. And I think many of us just accept our present circumstance as a part of who we are. I am a diabetic. No, I have diabetes. And if I learn that I have diabetes, I can do something about it. It's not who I am, because who I am is something so much deeper and so much more profound. It's that first feeling of consciousness when we were 6 years old playing on the playground and realizing that, man, I feel like this youthfulness that is constantly living inside me that does not have any space or time attachments, but instead it's this constant sense of being. And I think once we get to that place, then we can overcome that physical limitation. But and I'm not saying it's easy, because I had many dark moments. I had many dark moments, but it really is, I think, that sense of knowing that like this inner knowing, I can't even explain it more than that, that really pulled me out of it. So I'm wondering if you also resonate with that. Did you have that feeling like, no, this can't be me. Like I know I'm meant for something else. Like this is not who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, there was something inside of me that was for sure burning. And what was interesting was I wanted to figure out, well, what can I do? Like what action can I take? Where can I take back some control here to start like moving in the direction of what I wanted? And, that was basically mastering my thoughts. So I started a gratitude journal. I started thinking about what am I grateful for? And I tapped into the law of vibration, which at the time I didn't understand these universal laws. And most people probably have heard of the law of attraction, but that's like secondary. The primary is the law of vibration, saying the vibration that you hold, attraction, other things at that vibration, what you're a vibrational match for. And what happens in life is so many people, we see it, right? They get just down and they start going down this like vortex, like, and there's stuff, the car broke, now they got an accident, next thing happened, like all this stuff. And you're like, what is going on with that person? And you see somebody else, it's like they got a vortex up. Oh, they're so lucky. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that by shifting my inner state. So I literally it was not easy. Like I'd stare at the piece of paper and I'm like, there is nothing to be grateful for, but that's because I was comparing to how my life was. And it forced me to come to the present and go, well, yeah, like I saw a beautiful sunrise today. I had really yummy like strawberries today. Like those are things to be grateful for. And it switched how I looked at life. It was like a new lens got put on life. And I became happy. I had started meditating around the same time. So like I talked about earlier, that depression and anxiety seemed to just go away. And when my internal world shifted, that was when the answer got attracted in. We got a phone call from an acupuncturist who literally said to my mom, I've started using this health technology in my practice. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It stimulates cellular repair. It just puts back in these communication molecules that the body had a lot of when you were young, and you make less as you get older. She said, I know Danielle's young, but she has so much damage. It must be like 1 bar service on your cell phone. Like the call for help is just not loud enough. And she said, I really think it could pass the blood-brain barrier and help. And she went on talking about like it had helped some people with digestive issues, some people with hormones, some people with their skin. She said it's non-specific. It's just the signal that every cell in the body uses. So that got attracted in. And like now looking back, I see what I did. And this is what I put in my book. And I want everybody to realize is like, that was an internal shift, which one person was in charge of, me. And you've got the same power, like the power is sitting inside of you and the world is trying to wake you up to it. It's literally trying to push you into obstacle and challenge until you wake up to the fact that, oh, you have the ability internally to decide the direction of life. And you literally will start to pull in the circumstances, the people. Like it's no mistake that you and I met. It's just not. Like we both put out a certain vibration, boom, here we both are. Like that's how life is always unfolding. And once you can master your mind and get your inner world set and like tuned to the radio station, right, that you want, the vibration that you want, you can start to attract in what it is that you need. And you did the same thing, like with what you were sharing with me, that knowing that you knew you were going to get through it. That was the vibration you were holding. And so inevitably, the right things were going to come to you. And sometimes with injury, like it's patience. I remember my cognitive therapist, she's amazing. But she said to me, Danielle, you're going to have to balance pushing like you're used to from being an athlete, pushing yourself to get back with having to rest and allowing your body to go through what it needs to physically heal and repair.
Yes.
And it was such good advice. I wrote it down because I was so used to pushing. It was really hard for me to just go, okay, so my job is just to be. Feels like a strange thing to just do. But it made all the difference, right? Like the body kind of needs to push and then repair and push and repair. So
yeah, definitely. And you know, this is a pattern that we also see around health and fitness, and one that specifically I work with so much with my own athletes is that mindset of the knowing that I can do it. Because the majority of us start a fitness program, we sign up with a coach, we start a brand new diet, and the moment we start it, the first thought that came into my mind is, well, this is not going to work. Well, I tried this already so many times, and you know, I failed all those other times. Well, why should this time work? Right? Or there's no way I can do it. And so when we step into that with that mindset, to your point, we're vibrating to attract exactly that. Even though we're doing the work, you know, there is no resonance. The actions that I'm doing doesn't match the antenna. My frequency is attracting why it's not going to work versus how all of these small actions that I'm taking towards my health and fitness will create an impact. And so I love this conversation so much because the moment I believe that we actually start to have that knowing is when everything changes. And one of the sayings I oftentimes say is believe, begin, become, because it really does start with that belief system and the knowing that you can create something, you can change something in any area of your life. And then you just start, you take it one day at a time. It's 1% better every single day. And eventually you become that without even seeing the shift. You're a brand new person. And actually, I believe the person you're always meant to be.
yeah. And people should realize like that mind chatter, we all have it. Like it's
Yeah.
completely normal. Like the spiritual teachings, you know, that I've like explored, they call it the ego mind, right? The ego is like, it's great. It's why we wake up and remember how to drive the car and how to talk. And like, it's definitely a helpful thing to have that as part of our human mind. However, it also can get programmed with things that are not beneficial because it's trying to keep you safe. So if something happened to you as a child, sometimes you hold on to this thing that's continuing to block you now. And what's interesting is if you can just observe the thoughts that are coming up, you're going to realize the block that's there. And if you need help with this, like this is what I wrote my book about, because it was like, I saw this happening in my own life. And it was as if I had like this lens on of like, well, I'm not worthy. Other people have this lens of like abandonment or nobody loves me or I'm not heard, right? We have these things or I'm not good enough. And it's like, oh, when that pops in, that's a chance for you to really like life is literally triggering you so that because it's saying, hey, that's not a helpful thought. You need to get rid of it. But so many times we get obsessed with that like emotional thought and we let it just like pull us around in life. But if you detach from it and you observe and you go, oh, interesting that I'm feeling that way. Like whatever just happened, I started this new workout program and now I've got this thought that's popped into my head. Like it's not a helpful thought. Why is it there? Oh, because it's telling me I need to get rid of it, you know, and figure out what is the root of it. What's that seed? And I use yoga nidra. I use meditation to get rid of these like things that are kind of embedded in there. But it's so powerful. This is what I love to talk about. I'm like, I'm on a mission to help people realize what the mind chatter is about so that they can master it and actually get in touch with their true self and realize that the challenges and the obstacles and everything that's triggering them is for them so that they can get rid of all this stuff because the mind can be quiet. And then you really access, you know, that full potential that's flowing to and through you all the time, the way that kids do. Like you talk about that life force that kids have. We have the same life force now as adults. It's just that we burn so much of our life force energy in our mind on all of these unhelpful thoughts and doubts and fears and worrying about the future, like the memory graveyard of the past, right? Like just going back to all the stuff you can't even impact.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's laughable when you allow yourself to laugh at like how crazy your mind makes you. But if you don't realize it's doing it, like it's a terrible place to live.
Yeah, yeah, such a good point. And I bet you some people listening are like, well, they're always talking about this positive mindset thing, and we're now in this new age where it's all about vibration and law of attraction and being positive all the time. And I think what needs to be said here is that it is not possible to be positive 100% of the time, right? And I think that's the monkey mind. That's the ego that still keeps coming up. And even when we have so many successes and so many things to be grateful for, and we are doing that practice, we still have to be on guard at the door of our mind for those thoughts that still continue to seep in, right? So what do you think of that, Danielle? What would you have to say around that?
Well, I would say like emotions are part of the human experience, and your job is just to allow them. Like they're coming out to pass through. And the problem that most people have, like if you look at it as like a tube, it's like we feel this emotion of fear or getting upset. And so many people block it. Like they put a literal block and they try and repress it and they push it down. And it just literally feeds on this. Okay. So that emotion that was trying to move through the tube is just hitting that block and it turns in on itself. And it can literally manifest as dis-ease in the body, some sort of disease. There is literally emotional roots to a lot of the things that people physically have wrong. Not like us, we had trauma. That's different. But it can manifest in that way. And so again, what's wanting to happen is it's just wanting to move through. And what you need to realize is it's like a hurricane blowing through down here in Florida. Like you're not the hurricane, and it might be intense to go through it, but try and witness it. Be
Mm,
that backdrop, and just go, well, isn't it interesting? I'm feeling sad right now.
right.
Don't worry about why you're feeling sad. Don't get engaged with it. If you need to cry, let it out.
Right.
Right. And just let it flow through, because don't you always feel better after you cry? It's like because the emotion just wanted to get felt. And when it's, banging up against us, it can't. And maybe like a lot of times people as a child, like things happen and you don't have the emotional intelligence to let things flow through. And so then as you get older, the body's so intelligent. It's like, okay, now's the time. I want to release this. I
Mm.
get sad out of nowhere. Why? Don't worry about it. Just
Just,
let it go.
just go with it. Just go with it. Yeah.
Let it go and don't judge yourself. And then it's like, I personally, like, I have things in place that help me reset. So for me, it's going out in nature. Like I'll go for a walk, because that just allows me to recenter. Maybe like I have a spring down here locally. I jump in the springs. Like it's like 72 degrees. So it's kind of chilly and it just, it resets my body. So there's things I do. I pet my dog.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just have things around you to support. And it's not normal to be sad all the time. Right. So if that's happening, like, well, maybe we need to work on something to pull you out of it. But yeah, it's totally normal to have emotions. And if you didn't, something would be wrong.
Right. Agreed. Right. Wow, this was a really powerful conversation, Danielle. I loved it so much. So, if anybody wanted to reach out and learn more from you, where can they go to do that?
Yeah, probably best place is Instagram. All my links are in my bio there over on Instagram. It's my name, Danielle Matthews, with an underscore at the beginning and the end, because apparently there's other Danielles out there. But I'd love to gift you all in that link. You can get a link to the ebook Mind Control if you want to kind of go through and dive deeper on the topics we were talking about today. If you want to try a yoga nidra, I have a recorded one out there for people that just need help with like a practice that can help turn their thoughts off and help them access that space we've been talking about. And the redox signaling, that's on there as well. So if you're interested in learning more, like go there. It's fascinating. I've gotten to work with people now that are, unable to get out of bed, and now have gotten their health back, like myself, like chronic stuff coming back, but also the other end of the spectrum with like athletes that are pushing themselves to the next level, and helping their bodies to repair faster. So it's wild on that Instagram. I'm also always, always, always talking about the wild mind and all that mind chatter. So if you need little reminders, come on over. I'd love to connect with you.
I love it. Thank you so much for this today, Danielle. Really loved talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on.